here.
Okay.
You all,
What's that reference to?
I'm looking at the cast to carry.
Okay. All right, regular meeting of council, February 22nd, 2016. Any additions or deletions to the public agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Councillor Coppola, seconded by Councillor Gisbert. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Minutes. February the 10th, regular council meeting minutes. I just have one item that I think needs to be addressed. On page 6 of our agenda, it shows myself and Councillor Hayne leaving the meeting at 8:45 p.m., but apparently we returned 20 minutes earlier.
You found the time warp.
Well, I'm thinking time travel, fantastic. I haven't aged a bit. So I'm not sure whether maybe that should read like 8:35 on the first one, and then 8:40.
the first group came back at 8:25.
Yeah, so the previous one on the previous
You guys
page.
probably left it in.
Certainly a serious oversight.
I'm just wondering how I did it. That's okay. Any suggestions there, Trudy?
Yeah. We're going with 8:35 leave and an 8:55 return?
Here, you only talked for about
8:50
2 minutes on
return.
that.
Or we could do an 8:45 return.
Go back to the video.
Any more
replay
bits?
Just seeing the next time.
Mr. McRae.
Yes, but through your worship, given the videos are available online, so you can just take a look at it and then know what's up.
Sounds good.
Colon essay.
So noting staff will amend those times to the accurate points, I guess. Any other additions, deletions, corrections to the minutes? Okay, we have a motion to approve as amended by staff. Councillor Gisbert, seconded by Councillor Coppola. Thank you. Any further discussion? None. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. February 10th, committee of the whole meeting minutes. Councillor Neary, moving the minutes as presented. Okay, we have a seconder. Councillor Gisbert. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. February the 15th, 2016, committee of the whole minutes. Moved by Councillor Coppola, seconded by Councillor Swain. Thank you. Any discussion, amendments, changes, or otherwise? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Godfrey. Is he here?
I didn't believe he's here.
No, I don't believe he's here. Okay, possibly he will show up, Council, if it's all right, if we can move on in the agenda, if by chance he shows up, we can consider it. Yep. Okay, now, having said that, there was expected to be a request with the presentation. I did meet with Mr. Godfrey, who explained the event on May the 14th. With regards to it, there's some recommendations there with regards to traffic control, etc. What would council like to do at this time?
Move the recommendation.
Second by Councillor Coppola. Discussion. Question to, sorry, Councillor Neary? Question to staff. Any concerns with respect to the ability to finalize traffic control, etc., noting we don't have staff for it, although there is a request to the fire department?
Through your worship, I've discussed it with the Director of Public Works. There's no concerns at this time.
Okay. Councillor Neary? Okay. Anything further from the council? Okay, all good. Sorry, Councillor Gisbert.
The entrance to our beautiful path at Ware Road, we need to get a broom out there because I nearly went over on the rocks, the gravel. I take it every day. I'll bring the broom.
Okay, anything further? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, correspondence. Deal with these separately. Mr. Halliday, with regards to the Port Theatre, looking for $9,000 funding for 2016. Councillor Coppola, is
I'll move that council approve the January 25th, 2016 request from the Port Theatre Society for $9,000 funding for 2016.
Your second? Second by Councillor Geselbrecht. Discussion. Councillor Newman?
Thank you, through you, Your Worship, to staff. Is this request in addition to our existing commitments to pay towards the Port Theatre, or is this the regular request?
That's the agreement. This is the regular request. 2015, we provided $9,000 as well as a similar grant.
Thanks.
Councillor Haynes?
2 questions to the staff. The previous council made a motion that this become a line item in the budget. Are we going to see that from here on in?
Through your worship, yes, that's correct.
And secondly, where is this funding source coming from?
Through your worship, I'll direct that to the Director of Finance for response.
I would have to confirm that for council, but it would be from the same source where it was previously coming from, and I believe that's from property tax.
From where?
Property tax. But I can confirm and we can email council.
What's it?
General taxation.
What was it?
Councillor Coulson?
So I'm not going to support this again. This is the same arguments as last year for me. It's essentially become the water bribe. But in 2002, there was a referendum on the topic. 55% of electoral area D voted against this contribution. In the recent citizen satisfaction survey in 2012, 89% of respondents said that they never or rarely access the Port Theatre. So based on those 2 things alone, I can't support it. And then just another subjective comment, our sister towns in the RDN, Parksville, Qualicum Beach, Ladysmith, which is only 5 kilometers further away than Latsville, don't financially support the Port Theatre.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Second item, Jennifer Phillips, regarding Dickinson Road and Orr Road. Councillor Swain, do you wish to speak to it?
Sure. So I received correspondence from Jennifer Phillips regarding a request for a pedestrian crossing at the bottom of a District Lansville trail between Dickinson Road and Orr Road. So I do have a motion here that council instructs staff to provide a report outlining options for pedestrian crossing, including but not limited to an illuminated warning system to cross Dickinson Road between the bottom of the trail at Dickinson Road, which is located in District Lansville, between Dickinson Road and Saxon Cross Road and Orr Road. It's a bit of a mouthful, but that's the motion.
Second by Councillor Geselbrecht. Discussion. Councillor Swain.
So, where this also stems from is within Goal 7 of the official community plan, which we are well aware is a little outdated. It more specifically outlines under policy 10.2.1 that pedestrian routes and options, that the district will examine options of making pedestrian and bicycle travel accessible, safer, more pleasant along more heavily traveled roads such as Lansville, Dickinson, Olds, Harvey West, and Superior roads. So I think that goes hand in hand with this identified concern from my community member. I also use this trail, and it's bad enough the conditions traveling down Dickinson to actually access that trail, but that's a whole separate issue. So I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm hoping that council will support moving this request forward.
Councillor Geselbrecht.
Dickinson is almost as dangerous as Hammond Bay Road. I lived at the bottom of Dickinson there, and the only way I would recommend that we cross it is to dig a tunnel underneath, because you have, as Mark said, speed adventurers coming from both ends. And the problem I see with trying to put a signal there is that you're going to give, mom and the kids a false sense that somebody's going to stop, and then they'll get picked off, as opposed to knowing nobody's going to stop and just waiting. But until we have, serious bike routes on each side of the road, where there's enough room for bike routes, and even then, it's still dangerous. I just don't know what you can do, and I'd hate to see us give somebody a false sense of safety when it's not going to happen. Take another trail. I'm waiting for Harvey Road East to go in, to take some of the traffic off of Lansville Road and Dickinson Road. But I don't know. It's dangerous.
Councillor Neary.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff, this is an enabling motion asking for just for options as opposed to any rationale. How much time and labour will go into providing a report of this nature?
Through your worship, staffers gave a rough estimate of 4 to 6 hours, perhaps.
Okay, thank you. In principle, I'm not against this motion. I'm not sure, though, where it kind of fits in the bigger scheme of things. I don't for 1 minute doubt that there are issues for some people who are pedestrian users of Dickinson Road, and this might well be a great spot to put a crossing, or staff may come up with an option that's maybe more suited. My only caveat is, at this point, is that I'm quite certain that there is an abundance of crossings, roads, pathways that would benefit from exactly the same kind of crossing within Lansville. So, I think it depends as much on usage, numbers of people who are using these different routes, and no doubt it could be justified in a multitude of areas within the district. So I'm a little leery of just jumping to action based on, a request, a letter that says, we need a crossing, so let's put a crossing in. So I'm going to support this to get a report from staff, and I'm going to be really interested to see what comes back from staff. I'm pretty sure that putting in a crossing, especially with an illuminated warning system, is a pretty expensive undertaking. So there may be other options. There are lots of different ways of approaching road safety that I'm no expert in, but I just have some reservations about this based on the fact that this is one area, one piece of road among many, many, many pieces of road and intersections or whatever the situation is across the district. And, I see a lot of pedestrians throughout the district all the time who probably experience the same issues. If there's a really strong case for it, I would support it wholeheartedly, but I'm not making that commitment now. I'll just make the commitment to finding out what staff have to tell us. But I do it reluctantly, to be honest, and it's nothing to do with not believing in safety.
Councillor Coulson, then Councillor Hayman, and Councillor Caldwell.
I agree with a lot of the points. Good idea. It is going to be expensive, and how many other areas are of equivalent benefit throughout the community? I don't recall off the top of my head if the traffic survey actually looked at Dickinson Road, or is it just through the core? Does anyone recall?
I think just look at connecting the roads. Staff might correct me. Survey or the OCP amendments?
No, the traffic study that was done. Did it look at Dickinson, or was it just through Lansville Road?
It looked
The
at
main
Dickinson,
interchange.
but just the corner here, when
Right.
it was traveling through that corner of the intersection.
Yeah, because it has speed data and incident data and so forth. So, question through to Mark.
Councillor Swain.
Sorry, Councillor Swain. How detailed a report are you looking for? Just kind of cost options and options for a crossing, or are you kind of geared more toward the traffic robot, where there's a more physical mandated stopping requirement?
From my standpoint, I'm just directing staff to look at options for crossing. And it's just as simple as that, and put it in the expertise of Public Works to deal with. Whatever comes back as a recommendation. It's not my area of expertise, so I can trust that Public Works will have a good look at it and come back with some thoughtful recommendations.
Thank you for the Councillor Wilson. Councillor Hain.
Well, I like the motion. I think it's a good idea to do. In my mind, we put nothing ahead of safety for the residents. We promote these trails. We encourage the residents to get out and walk. We create these loops. And this is bringing a trail down off of, or a path off of Saxon Cross. We encourage people to go down to the waterfront. We make that a destination for our residents to go down and use the beach. If you come off of that trail, and I actually don't even like the landing, if there was some way staff could look at that in this report, because it's a little treacherous itself when you come down and then kind of fall on the road. But if there is a way, because it's a blind corner there, and I, speaking as the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, this is one of the more treacherous points where people do cross on a busy road. Most of them, most residents can see both ways in a lot of the areas, but not in this point. So I think it's worthy of a starting point where we can start looking at what does it cost to make these crossings a little bit safer. It may be as simple as cutting the trees back and putting a sign further up, but who knows unless we start looking at it. And, you know, if we're going to encourage people to be riding bikes and walking trails, we got to make it safe for them and not worry that somebody's not going to stop them. So I'm looking forward to the report, and I'm glad that we're going to start looking at these.
Councillor Coppola.
Similarly, I support the recommendation. 2 reasons. Safety, obviously, but it'll also help inform the council for other locations. I mean, a lot of the information will be generic. It won't be specific, but it'll be generic, which will help us. And also, as well as Councillor Hain's comments here, ask staff to not just look at the crossing, look at other ways of making it safe, which may be back or landing.
For myself, just to complete kind of a round before we go to second time. It's not unusual for items that appear to be kind of a one-off special consideration that results in council considering further policies that then apply kind of, district-wide. When it comes to the aspect of the road, you know, doing some reading on the weekend, for example, some areas have specific guidelines, so they need to meet some sort of metric. So, for example, 20 crossings an hour, X number of gaps, or less than X number of gaps in traffic to allow people to cross before they consider even just kind of the lines. And part of that comes from that misplaced safety feeling of, oh, there's lines there, people are going to stop, and then they don't. You lose the argument in that respect. Just a question to staff, in a report like this, as based on how the motion is, would it be more of a mechanical report as to the mechanics of establishing a crossing, or do you foresee some discussion as to rationale for where such crossings should be placed? Because, you know, for example, if you go to Peterson Road, you know, Peterson Road, there's a crosswalk there. There's no flashing lights, that sort of thing. But a lot of people come down Peterson, again, to head down to the beach. So could that come out of this? What's your feeling based on the guidance of the motion?
Your Worship, given the way the motion is crafted, it's options for pedestrian crossings, so we're able to give kind of a bigger picture view of how this would play out. So I think we can answer some of the questions that council's put forward as the motion is broad enough.
Okay, so there could be something that would be more applicable to a broader spectrum. Okay, thank you. Councillor Swing and Councillor Desmond.
Thank you. Just through the chair, just to further comment on Councillor Hain's comment, really we are completing the loop. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but we are now completing the loop from a trail to a beach access across a busy road, which is not always fun to travel. And actually, I don't think I have any fun traveling that road. I've never experienced any joy while on my bike or walking or running on that road. You know, in terms of safety, obviously everybody's concerned with safety. I teach my kids 2 rules for riding bikes: helmets first, and then cars don't see bikes. So I think, I think in this day and age, the public has to be honest for how they conduct themselves when they're crossing crosswalks and so on. But that's it. Thank you.
Councillor Ginsburg?
Well, maybe when Clara Hughes does her tour through Lansville, she'd give us some things. But, Public Works has the best opportunity when they're out there doing things to see where there's blind corners. I know Andrea Crescent, Phillips Road, somebody's got actually on Ware Road, somebody's got a big 6-foot-high fence that hits the corner, and when you stop coming out Ronald Road, actually onto Ware Road, you can't see cars coming. And whether that fence is built to code, whether there's something wrong there, I mean, you probably don't have a bylaw. And I can, numerous intersections when you come off the trail, the bike trail off onto Ware Road, so that you're there and the cars coming up over the railway tracks. Up on Alls Road, there's a stop sign that nobody stops for, and I've been almost hit numerous times. So Public Works really has the best opportunity to keep a little piece of paper with you and mark down these intersections, and to see if somebody's let their hedge grow too high, maybe recommend that they take a hedge out, see if the fence is built too close to the road, that they've actually exceeded their property lines, and that way they have a little list that we can go investigate one of these days to make it safe. But it seems like in Lansville, people they take an inch and then they go the whole mile, and we don't catch up with it till something unfortunate happens.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Gets us to the verbal updates. Councillor Swain.
Well, given the core review in Nanaimo, nothing to report from the Nanaimo Park and Rec Commission. So everything's on hold. And if you ever look at how much money they spend on park, rec, and culture in Nanaimo, or I think it's under environment too, I can understand why it is a core item to be reviewed. So.
Okay. Councillor Haynes.
Something to report.
Councillor Caldwell. Councillor Neary.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, actually, I do have something to report, and it's somewhat belated. But last month I attended the Green Shores workshop conducted by, is it Stewardship BC? I got that right. Out of the University of Victoria. It was really interesting. It was an introductory workshop for a day. Mainly professionals and environmental people who've got an environmental interest were in attendance. 2 of our staff attended, for Public Works and our planner. And I found it really enlightening, very interesting. I know that Mr. Spears has already employed some of the principles of soft shore development or redevelopment down on some of our accesses where it's possible. We visited the beach and looked at a lot of the different kinds of shoreline structures, from riprap to solid walls to natural foreshore to a combination of both. There is a preponderance of hard structures on our beach because a lot of it's residential, and of course people are keen to protect their assets. But I think it behoves council to think about encouraging Green Shores redevelopment or reparation as and when planning permits are coming forward, rather than just simply automatically renewing hard structures, because they often contribute to the erosion of the shoreline. There are other workshops that will be taking place. Whether I would go to attending those, I'm not sure, because I think they will be way more technical in nature and probably lost on me. But I was really surprised and enlightened by the whole event. It was really worthwhile.
Okay. Councillor Coulson.
Sure. this actually came from the Tonight Show. I was watching a YouTube clip on it, and they were speaking of global warming, and apparently experts are expecting quite a significant increase in diarrhea due to global warming. So they were speaking about this being quite a problem, because not only is global warming our number one problem, it's also going to become a number two problem.
So I know where you're going. Too much time on your hands, Councilor Colwell? Sorry. Well, I guess I could apply. Anything further, Councilor Colson?
No.
Councilor Gilderoy?
Just happy to see the return of the Savages and the Hellawells to our gallery. Heartwarming.
Is that it? Okay. For myself then, just introducing the bulletin. Nicholas, is it Pescott? Yep. Pescott. He'll be covering Lanceville for the bulletin. So with respect to comments and that sort of thing, be careful. Okay, items from the committee of the whole. Recommendations coming forth. First item has to do with the Huddlestone Park pathway. So we've got the motions that are recommendations coming forward, so we need to confirm them or otherwise here at council. So the first one there from Councillor Cole Clough, second by Councillor Neary. Any discussion with respect to the Huddlestone Park pathway? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, OCP review process 2016 and then funding in 2016-2017. Moved by Councillor Colclough, second by Councillor Hain. Any discussion with respect to the OCP? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Operating reserve fund for the future OCP review process. Councillor Colclough, seconded by Councillor Hain. Any discussion on the $15,000 per year, starting in 2018? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Freedom of the Municipality Honor Policy number 3000-8.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Hain. It is seconded. That's adoption. Councillor Swain, thank you. Any discussion with respect to the Freedom of the Municipality Honor Policy? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item under unfinished business, a request for early release of $7,000 for the completion of the design of Lanceville and Normal Water interconnection. Moved by Councillor Colclough, seconded by Councillor Gilderoy. Discussion. Councillor Hain?
Through you to staff, when is the expected date that we're going to receive that report?
What report?
Isn't this, aren't we getting this design, didn't we request a design report?
No, they're just going to do the design.
Oh, I thought we were going to get something first that said, this is what we're looking at, this is the cost.
No, the design was actually, I believe it was November, around there. It was to actually go for design. Now that design is nearly complete because of overruns through over the year. We're still under budget, but it's not totally complete. This will get it up to a point where we can submit it for permits to VHA.
Oh, okay.
And then it will sit and wait until council decides on what they want to do.
So will it come back so we see the final product or see something? No? Yeah.
When the pipe goes in the ground.
Okay, it'll be, okay.
Yeah, it's an operational aspect of design of it as opposed to a decision-making aspect. When we said do the detailed design, our fingers stopped touching it at that point.
But if we want to see it, we can go up and see it in your office on the report?
Yeah, as soon as I get it.
Okay.
It'll be down here, actually.
Oh, okay, so you'll let us know when it's available to review.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Coulson.
So just procedurally, why is it an early release request? Because it's a project that spans back to last year.
But we haven't approved the budget for 2016, so similar to the parks things that we were looking at previous meeting.
Okay. So
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, so it's just for the fund.
Okay.
It's for the funding for a previous motion that we made with regards to direction of staff.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything further? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, just for information, as a result of motions made back in January 2015, I had done a memo to council with respect to possible changes to staff reporting and also with regards to council procedures on in-camera, just so that there's greater accountability with respect to the explanation as to why things are in camera. And so staff's followed up on that by adding a line within our in-camera reports with a greater discussion with respect to why an item is in camera. So this is just for our information. Moved by Councillor Colclough, seconded by Councillor Hain. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Then, in addition to that, there was discussion at the strategic planning with regards to the aspect of public participation and ways that we can improve on that from a public perspective. So the staff's got a recommendation there that in the draft policy that they created, recommending it go to the committee of the whole for further discussion.
So I move that council refer the District of Glassville's public participation policy to the committee of the whole.
Seconded by Councillor Swain. Thank you. Any discussion? Note there's a variety of examples there. Yeah. Note Saanich is the one that I referred to staff, and it's got a lot of background in there. The policy's towards the end. There's pages and pages of background, so even though it looks thick, the actual policy isn't that much. Councillor Geismar.
Is this tea and cookies for the public now?
That's only because we're not allowed to send them to the public. So, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Audiovisual options. There's previous motions with respect to audiovisual options for the council chambers here. Staff's put together some information for us. What would the council like to do?
I move that council withdraw the motion on the floor from April 13, 2015.
Second by Councillor Giselbert, and there's all that wording.
Yeah.
Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
I move that council approve council meeting recording option number 2 moderate as presented in the February 22nd, 2016 staff report, and further that council approve 15,000 capital and 850 ongoing operating funds in the financial plan for the implementation of the preferred option as presented by staff.
Second by Councillor Giselbert. Discussion. Councillor Henry.
Okay, so when's it going to be done?
It's only Monday.
Clear the council chamber, your worship. I'll go to Best Buy and I'll have it set up in the morning. Your worship, in all seriousness, staff have done due diligence in going through the options here, and as the motion on the floor is for option 2 moderate, we will be putting out most likely an RFP at that point to get this set up properly, so we can get a budget, so staff will start plugging away at an RFP relatively soon to get it moved.
So just following up on that, I think this is a good thing. You know, the price is a bit high, but I can live with it. I think it'll give us the bells and whistles we want. The biggest thing I hear is from our senior residents who can't get down here to a council meeting, especially when it's still dark at night. They are looking forward to being able to see this online. Nothing against Councillor Colson, so it'll just be a little easier to hear. I just think it's going to be a really good improvement for accountability and transparency.
Further discussion. Okay, from my standpoint as well, and hats off to Councillor Colson for the efforts that he's put in with respect to the recording of it, showing that yes, it definitely can be done in that regard. Similar to Councillor Hain, the one-time cost is for me the biggest kind of choke aspect. The aspect of the sound system, separate from the recording side, hopefully that'll help as well in terms of it. The 850 annual operating, that to me works in terms of it. So on a future basis, relatively small price for the accessibility for the residents. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Gets us to bylaws. Staff put together a report regarding 2015 to 2019 financial plan amendment. The recommendation, first 3 readings. Procedural question to staff. Do we have to do the 3 readings? Procedural question to staff. Do we have to do the 3 readings as 3 separate motions? Just want to make sure.
Is there a page that has this on?
90 to 93, actually further than that.
97.
So do note, as strange as it sounds, it is amending the financial plan of last year.
I move that council give first reading to bylaw 122, 2016.
Moved by Councillor Colclough, second by Councillor Neary. Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Colson.
So I just had a question on page 91 with the gas tax accounting. I didn't get a chance to go find it, but I thought there was something from the auditors that stated we had to change how we accounted for the gas tax funds. And it was broader to all municipalities in BC.
Through your worship. So what it is there's some accounting changes in the last few years. This is an item that throughout the province, municipalities are handling it differently. We have 2 different approaches that we can take, and both are quite acceptable. Essentially, what the change, there's 2 changes. One of them is a change in accounting standards that has come in. The other one is with the gas tax agreement. Back in 2014, a new agreement came in. In the past, it was very restricted for what you could use it for. Now it's not so restricted. There's still restrictions, but you can use it for a lot more items. So essentially, it's an accounting issue with it. So it depends how you're going to view it, whether it's restricted enough to leave it in deferred revenue, or now it's broad enough that you could bring it into general revenue. So it has absolutely no impact on the amount of revenue the municipality receives. It's just how we're accounting for it.
Councillor Colson.
So it sounded like the difference between the 2 options depended on how you would use the gas tax funds?
No, it's strictly an accounting issue and how we view it. So it is something that we have discussed with the auditors. They are aware that we're going to continue to put the money into deferred revenue, leave it as it is, say, restricted. The council's not putting any restrictions on it. The restrictions are with the gas tax agreement that was signed back in 2014. Like I say, either option is perfectly acceptable accounting-wise. It's an unusual situation that's been created where, like I say, basically half the municipalities in the province are going to report it one way, half the municipalities are going to report it another. So we're going to continue to report as we always have.
Any further discussion? Just for the interest of the public, there's an additional $51,325 being transferred from surplus to identify specifically the election expenses, the second strategic plan development, and then also correction of a historical challenge within the financial books of $24,250. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Second reading.
I'll move that council give second reading to bylaw 122, 2016.
Moved by Councillor Colclough, second by Councillor Neary. Any discussion there? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Go for it more.
Move council gives third reading to bylaw 122, 2016.
Seconded by Councillor Neary. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, new business now. Item 9A, region-wide watering restrictions framework. Director of Public Works put together a report detailing out some of the challenges that have occurred over the last 12 months, especially in the various areas with respect to watering restrictions. And they're looking for incorporating the water restrictions identified in Figure 1 of the staff report into the water conservation plan. Moved by Councillor Colclough, second by Councillor Hayman. Discussion. Councillor Colclough.
I think it's great. Obviously, it's very thorough. I like the changes to the restrictions, table 1 on page 101.
Which page?
Page 101 of the agenda package is figure 1. Particularly around watering vegetables, which can be done anytime under this regime versus I guess the only thing that I would have rather seen was no lawn sprinkling in stage 3. I think by that point people should just give up. And if there was less watering in stage 3, it would take us longer to get to stage 4, but I'm okay with it the way it is.
Councillor Hain.
This is the way it really should have always been. I think in most people's minds, there should never be a restriction on watering your garden and your fruit trees. You know, I hate to see those trees die. I'm still a little confused by stage 3. I won't deny that. It's a little weird because it looks like now there's really no regulations to me. Everything's just voluntary, so I don't quite get that, but I can live with it.
Why don't you have staff to explain?
Why is it like that?
Well, in dealing with the area and the other communities, we looked at certain things that trigger people to conserve, and if you ask them to conserve, they will. It's just something that happens naturally. If you go out and ask them, you know, voluntary watering, which means, you know, no sprinkling of lawns and stuff like that, people are very responsive to that, and they know that, you know, water is limited, so it seems to work rather well.
So as a follow-up with that, why couldn't we at the top put something to the effect that voluntary water restrictions is always appreciated, like at all times, really? If there's some way people can find to conserve water, why wouldn't we encourage them to do it all the time?
And we can do that through the flyer we put out on a monthly basis. It's kind of, we were thinking hand in hand of putting this out at the same time as the flyer goes out, and then a little blurb in it as well.
Okay.
On that cast.
Councillor Cole.
A question through you to staff. Fred, will this actual table be the way it looks, the way it's presented?
Yes.
And is that the same throughout all jurisdictions?
That's correct.
I was just going to say that under one suggestion that was made to me by a person in public was to move the vegetable gardens up to the top, put it above watering lawns, just to show that it's a priority, and put watering lawns at the bottom. Anyway, it's just a suggestion.
Councillor Cole. Geselbrecht.
Oh, God, I was going to say.
You're laughing at me? Well, while you ponder that, Councillor Colson's going to say.
Yeah, I like it. It's got some good structure to it. I express or share similar concerns about stage 3. Appreciate if you ask people to voluntarily cut back water, they will. But for those that are kind of used to the structure, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, voluntary. Yeah, I kind of get it. It's supposed to cut back. Will they potentially resort back to something else, you know? And then we're back to regular in stage 4. So I kind of shared some similar concerns about the presentation on that particular stage, but otherwise it's great.
Now I remember.
Okay.
Through the mayor to the staff, what are the sanctions if you don't follow these? Is this a bylaw? Do we need a bylaw to enforce it?
It's like a British bobby. Stop or else they stop again.
Staff, like to comment on what Councillor Geselbrecht said? Councillor Colson said?
In certain communities, there are bylaws and penalties that basically, I guess, cost funds. There's money's associated with the fines and ticketing and all the rest of it. So, but Lanceville at present doesn't have that.
For example, last year, were there infractions and were there fines levied during our stage 4?
Through the chair, there was a couple of infractions, but once you go out and talk to people, they tend to stop because a lot of the time it's just they didn't know about it.
Councillor Swain.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I thought Lanceville per capita had some of the lowest water consumption in the region, or in the, you know. So I don't think we have to probably police something that we're already doing a good job at.
Councillor Hain.
Yeah, just one follow-up question. So this is the format being followed by everyone in the RBN. So do we still set our own time frame on when we go up the various stages? So we could have one area on stage 3 and we could still be on, stage 4 again?
That's correct. And with the new website, the resident can just go click on, say, Lanceville,
Yeah.
and it'll come up and tell you exactly what stage you're at. So it makes it very user-friendly and clear.
Okay. Further discussion. At the RDM level, the biggest thing is to eliminate or decrease the confusion throughout the various jurisdictions, because everybody's, I wouldn't say they're all over the place, but with so many differences, people were quite confused as to kind of where they were at. The funding side of things for the website is coming through that Drinking Water Watershed Protection Program, which we contribute on a parcel basis too. So from that standpoint, it's a good thing. The biggest discussion or biggest confirmation on the part of the people at the regional board was just on that effective date, recognizing that we can be at various stages depending upon our needs, not by other people. So that was a push that sure seems like a good idea. Councillor Cole.
Just adding to that, one of the other things that was confusing that's been rectified by this is that stage 2, every community means the same thing, stage 3 means the same thing.
Councillor Hayden.
One last question. So are we also getting away from the odd and even sides of the street, like numbers? It doesn't matter anymore? Is it, was it in there?
Not stage.
Was it?
Yeah.
Previously, we had even and odd in stage 1
Right.
as well.
And now it's on stage 2.
Oh, it's only in state, okay. Right, but it's, we used to have it here.
Yeah.
Now, when I first saw this, one of the things, I did a comparison to our existing water restrictions, and you see, for example, different times compared to our old restrictions. There's that even odd aspect, but all that really means is that if it's a case where water use has been increasing because it's not the even odd aspect, we'll just move to stage 2 faster. Okay, so because of our flexibility.
And another thing council might want to take into consideration is that this spreads out the actual use of the demand. So we're hoping to have our maximum day demand drop by doing this. Instead of having it really accumulate a whole bunch all at once, it's easier on the system to gently let it go through the weeks.
Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Haynes.
I can do it first. I'm going to excuse myself on this one. I have a business relationship with the applicant.
Same for me. New business relationship. Didn't know you were swimming. Oh, the swimming.
So who's in the
It's
chair?
for me.
Council Wilson takes over as mayor.
Okay. So there's a development permit for 7468 Lanceville Road that, well, we have the motion.
I'll move the motion that council approve development permit application number 3060-20-DP 16-001 to accommodate development of 7468 Lanceville Road.
Seconded by Councilor Neary. Discussion. Actually, sorry. I forget if it's protocol to ask the applicant if would like to speak first.
No.
I'm sorry, I don't recall. Anything to add?
No.
No.
Go ahead.
Staff? Anything to add? Okay. Question? Okay, all those in favor? Against? Motion passed.
Okay. Next item, appointment of liaison to Seaside Community Society. Councillor Mary?
Thank you, Your Worship. Before this recommendation is moved, I do want it on the table before questions.
We don't stick to the firm rule of making the motion ahead of time, so I'd go ahead and ask a question.
I was kind of surprised by this, so I have some questions that I was bringing with me. First, I was curious as to the resignation, whether there were any specific reasons that occurred. I was surprised that, I was just surprised to see that. So that's one question. Do you want to?
Let's deal with one at a time. Councillor Coulson, when did you resign from that? Do you recall?
December 15th,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
give or take a day or two. Around there.
Yeah, it wasn't a recent aspect.
Okay, and is there any underlying reason why this resignation? Are there problems with this position, or is it a personal situation, or just...
Councillor Coulson, answer as you see fit.
I don't mind answering. Yeah, I think there's problems with the position. There's no clarity to what this role should be. And so I assumed it to be a liaison. I would take stuff from council back to the Seaside community to let them know what was coming down the pipeline, and vice versa. There was several examples, I won't go into those right now, of where that failed, both ways. And so it was largely a resignation out of frustration that it's not a well-utilized position at this time, the way it's currently being used by both parties.
Okay, thank you. Which kind of feeds into other questions that were raised in my mind when I saw this, and that was, what is the role? What is the purpose of council having a representative liaising with the Seaside community? I wasn't quite clear on the purpose of this role and what utility it serves. It kind of escapes me. I am of the opinion that the Seaside community has a relationship with council, a business relationship, by virtue of the fact that they have the management lease for 2 city district-owned facilities, but they are an independent society. And it kind of escapes me why we have a representative there. So I guess I'm asking the question, what is the purpose? And is it, do we need a representative at the Seaside Community Society? I'm really not sure that we do, to be honest.
Okay, Councillor Hayne?
Well, we've had one for 4 years, about 4 years. And
2011.
2000. And basically the liaison person has been to provide information to the Seaside Board if they've got any questions. If they're looking to do something, they can speak to the person who can bring it back to council, just to provide that information between the two parties. If a resident has a concern, the person who's been the liaison has been helping to, sort of help with any concerns that have come forward from the liaison. Really, it's just to keep everyone informed. It's kind of a contact. Brenda used to be the liaison for the Parks and Rec in Seaside, and we just did it because it helped to improve communication, and that they knew that council was interested in what they were doing, and the council was getting updated. It is a council asset or a community asset. So, it would be good to know what's going on in the community asset, because right now we really don't get any feedback as to what's happening about programs, if they're struggling, if they need, we don't hear anything really. We're sort of letting them operate in a vacuum to some extent. I think there's some projects that they're looking to move forward on that I think the liaison person could help them move forward on. For example, the Coston Hall sign, things like that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hayne. If I'm honest, I still fail to see the reason that we would appoint a representative to the Seaside Community Society's board meetings. It just seems strange to me. I would have thought that if there were any concerns or if there was a need to communicate, most of that communication probably takes place through staff. I would I would have expected staff to be the liaison, to be the conduit for information back to council. And I would imagine that most of that would be business orientated. If the Seaside Community Society wants representation from council, I think that's something to consider. But I just find it weird that we sit at an independent table that has taken the lease and taken responsibility for the function of whatever takes place in those buildings. I granted, I understand that they belong to us, but we've given that up. We've given up the management of those 2 buildings to this society. And I'm not saying there isn't any connection to council at all. I find it odd that we would send a member of council to sit at the table.
Councillor Coulson.
Not that I want to pick on one specific example, but it should and could help with communication mechanisms. Removing the cross. We made that motion as council. I don't think anyone communicated that through to this, through the staff initially, or to the Seaside group initially. So the Seaside group found out about that, in minutes or through the Lanceville grapevine, however it unfolds. To me, if you're going to have a liaison, that's a kind of a heads-up discussion, a notice of motion, something in the committee of the whole. By the way, we're thinking of doing this. The liaison then goes and talks to the Seaside group to give them the heads-up. Works the other way too. There's some things that haven't been communicated in a sound enough fashion, I think. And if we're going to have a liaison role, it should help with that.
Okay. Councillor Hain and Councillor Gettler.
Just a follow-up. This is just a liaison position. The person doesn't have any voting rights. They really have no influence as to what the board does. They're there really just to hear what's going on and to provide any assistance and to keep council up to date. Like, I guess from a transparency issue, I don't see what the concern is. Again, like I say, it's a community asset. If there's an issue with my appointment, I'm okay with that. Appoint someone else, I don't really care. All I would like to know is hear what's going on. So if that's the problem, fine, you sit on it.
Councillor Gettler.
Well, I think you should make the motion.
Well, I can't move for
All
myself.
right, I'm going to make the motion. I'll make the motion that council accepts Councillor John Coulson's resignation as the liaison to the Seaside community. And to further that, council appoints Councillor Denise Haim as the liaison to the Seaside Community Society.
Second order.
Yeah.
Can we separate those 2?
No reason why we can't. So let's do it as 2 separate motions. Okay. So,
I have no problem with that.
okay. So the first part there, just accepting Councillor Coulson's resignation. Second by Councillor Neary.
Yeah.
Okay. Discussion on whether or not we should accept.
Right?
Councillor Coulson.
Well, that was my point. So, I didn't want it to get lumped into a big debate about whether or not we're accepting the resignation. So that's why I thought we should separate it. Speaking in favor of the motion.
Any discussion on the motion?
Nope.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the second one.
And I'll make that further motion that appoint Councillor Denise Haim as the liaison to the Seaside Community Society.
Okay, do we second it for that? Second by Councillor Coulson. Discussion.
I agree with Councillor Neary that I think the society's in capable hands. If they have a problem, I agree that I think the proper route is through staff to council, and that will keep the communication open. We've got a lot of stuff to do. We've got budget meetings. Most of us are on different other outside committees. So I just don't see a need for a liaison.
Why don't you make a motion?
So, point of order is Is Councillor Gusselback speaking in favour or against the motion?
Against.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's a little different. Okay, Councillor Colcott.
Well, I think first of all, he was putting it on the table so we could discuss it, which is the right thing to do. Speaking against the motion, I'm not going to reiterate everything that everybody's saying here, but I don't think council has a relationship with Seaside. We passed a motion, there's a contract between the district and Seaside, and staff should be dealing with that. I like to know what's going on too, so maybe we could ask for a quarterly report or something, or something along those lines, but I don't think there's a need to have a councillor appointed to be a liaison.
Further discussion. Just for a little bit of historical aspect, when it came to the Seaside group, the criticism that council took a number of years ago was the fact that there wasn't the sharing of information back and forth, and hence the creation over time of a liaison type of an aspect. There was issues, contracts, other times against operations, because the sharing of information between Seaside and council as opposed to Seaside and staff, how staff looks at things, the responsibility of staff is different than it is from a council perspective with regards to identifying opportunities in ways that council can assist or council might be interested in assisting the Seaside group and vice versa in that respect. When it comes to the standpoint of the business relationship side, personally from my standpoint, when it came to, we given instructions with regards to the lease, and I hesitate to bring it up, but it's the best example. We've given instructions with respect to the lease, then we followed up with a motion to remove aspects off their property that we had leased to them. So we kind of bridged that business relationship right there. It wasn't part of the lease with regards to the removal. We went separately to do it. And at the time, I thought that's something that should have been discussed with Seaside and with the church aspect in terms of moving that forward in a more cooperative sense. And that's one of the aspects that this liaison position does, regardless of who it is. I sat on the Seaside board at the time that former Councillor Savage was the liaison, and in that respect there was the discussion as to what initiatives council was considering with respect to how that may impact Seaside and vice versa. So it was quite an amicable type of a relationship. I don't view it as oversight in any way, shape, or form. It's just cooperation. Councillor Neary.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is kind of unorthodox. I've never been in this situation before. I still feel, and I think there could be further discussion down the road, I personally feel that I'm not comfortable with the idea of appointing someone to liaise from council with Seaside Community Society. I feel very awkward in voting against a motion that is affirmative to that. It just seems like a weird way to do this, but I won't be supporting this on that basis. And I'm open to a discussion down the road because that has not taken place. This is a really kind of condensed debate here. If I'm convinced that there's a need for this down the road, I think, I could be persuaded to change my mind, but at the moment, I don't really feel that I've heard anything that changes the way I was thinking when I first came to the meeting. So, with some misgivings towards Councillor Hayne, I won't be supporting the appointment, but it has nothing to do with her personally.
Okay, Councillor Hayne.
Just a recorded vote, and I won the bet.
Okay. Councillor Coulson.
It's an interesting path we're on here, because I think of the library board and some of these other appointments. The same logic can apply to those appointments too, in just a manner of speaking. So even though I have resigned, I still think there can be value to that role if we chose to live by it, though. And that's really my broader gripe with all this, right? So yeah, I'm this is a double negative. So I am going to support this with the hope that we can actually make that role as a council and the Seaside community function the way it should.
Okay. Councillor Gisbert, were you waving your hand before? Okay, Councillor Marion.
Well, I won't labour a point. I think Councillor Coulson's just made a really good point, and that is that, maybe if this position is to be appointed, it needs some proper terms of reference, so that people all understand what the role is and, purpose. And that's where maybe I'm open to suggesting down the road.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, just last thing for myself, when it comes to, regardless of who it is, when it comes to it, and sharing information with regards to the community, being out in the community, having that go back and forth, I don't think that this one particular one is a role for staff. It's not administration of a contract in that regard. So from that standpoint, regardless of who it was, I would continue to support the idea of a liaison to the Seaside Community Society. Okay, question's been called, recorded vote. Those in favor? Councillor Coulson, Mayor Hain, Councillor Hain opposed, Councillor Gisbert, Councillor Neary, Councillor Kolkoff, and Councillor Swain. Motion defeated. It's strange, Councillor Gisbert putting that forward. Councillor Coulson.
So does that way that motion was crafted and the way the vote turned out actually kill the position?
Yes.
No.
No.
So we just haven't appointed anybody.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, public participation.
Was there someone else?
Sorry?
Council wanted to appoint someone else?
That doesn't appear to be the issue. Okay. Mr. Hallowell.
I'd just like to say how enlightened I was this evening to hear Councillor Coulson. He's on the leading edge with regards to global warming. I can only encourage Council and the Mayor and staff to expedite the third phase of the sewers.
Thank you. Mr. Savage.
Thank you. Graham Savage, 6685 Howard Drive. Just a couple of things. Glad to see the council moving forward with the water main design. That's for Namu interconnection. I wasn't in the Scouts as a young person, but I do believe in being prepared. And so it's be good to have that design on the shelf so it can be utilised when the time comes. Second thing, I want to compliment Council for proceeding with the wellfield study. And just a point of clarification here, Mayor Hames' blog of, I think it's about 3 weeks ago or a month ago, said Lanceville Council moving forward with redevelopment of 3 wells and redrilling 1 well. And then it said, why didn't 2011-2000 Council look at this? Well, in fact, the 2011-2014 Council did look at that. June 23rd, 2014, moved by Councillor Dempsey to proceed with the wellfield management plan by Lewin Hydrology. So, in fact, the previous Council, together with several other initiatives, did initiate the wellfield study. So, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
And just for the record, that wasn't a blog, it was a tweet.
Oh. Whatever.
Maybe all 140 characters.
Maybe you would just clarify that on your tweet.
And it was the point was basically if that was a possibility, why wasn't it looked at earlier, as opposed to waiting until 2014? That was the reason for it. Okay.
And of course, the same comment could go back to 2000 and whenever.
We're moving ahead.
But 6829 Stone Road. I just had a question about the recording of the meetings. Is there a component of microphones for the council in that? There is? Yes. I mean, personally, I don't have a big problem. Sometimes, not so much with current council, but in the past, and I've certainly heard others speak to, we can't hear, you know, sit here, what did he say? But that's good to hear. So,
That's good to hear.
Tom, there's always front row seats for those who are hearing challenge.
It's harder to escape up there. It's real hard.
I'm the new president of the Seaside Community Society this year, and I will certainly talk. I was away in December, so this was a surprise to me coming up, but I will certainly get some feedback from Councillor Coulson around the communication stuff and the position. I think Councillor Colclough's idea of Seaside doing a quarterly report to council is a great idea, because then you get to know the officers and the officers get to know you, and maybe they can take turns in doing that. So that might be something that we could implement. Also, when it never occurred to me as to the usefulness of the position until this discussion today. We've just been doing it, and that's what we've always been doing. I do remember it starting in 2011 when I was on Parks and Rec, and Seaside Society was struggling. They didn't know if they would be able to continue, and the Parks and Rec Commission assigned a liaison person to kind of help them look at programming. Out of that came the recreation survey that the Parks and Rec Commission did with the community, and that helped quite a bit. So that liaison type thing was very, very helpful. Whether it's outlived its usefulness, I've never really thought about that. But I think that we should have some feedback from you, Councillor Coulson, on your resignation. And then get together and talk it through, and if we all realise that we need a rep, then we'll go ahead with that. But it's not something that we ever considered until now, until it came up tonight. So we're very open to whatever people want to talk about. Okay? Thank you.
Any further public participation? Yes.
Carol Halliwell, 7186 Lambhurst Terrace. I've been on the board of Seaside Community for several years. And all I know is that when there was a council liaison joining our meetings, things progressed a lot better. Since Councillor Coulson resigned, nothing. There hasn't been any feedback back and forth between staff and Seaside. Very little email, and it's not really worked. Whereas, when Graham Savage was liaison, we got to know what was going on here, and vice versa, and things got done. But since then, like the sign, for example, we're still messing around with that sign. We don't know where we are. And maybe if we had council liaison, something would happen with that. I don't know.
Any further? Hearing none. Somebody want to make a motion? Councillor Dresbach, second by Councillor Neary, go in camera under section 91, bracket A and C of the community charter. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion carried.